Hello, I'm Manoush Samarodi with World Risk and Insurance News. In this program, cyber risk at the RSA conference, a study by Carnegie Mellon CyLab, and best practices from RIMS. Then a look at the court battles over the U.S. Affordable Care Act. The European Insurance and Reinsurance Federation gets a new name, and the latest RINtv poll. You're watching World Risk and Insurance News on RINtv. First, a look at cyber risk. RSA, a leading provider of security risk and compliance management solutions, recently held a conference in San Francisco. It drew some of the world's top information security professionals and business leaders. A key topic? Cyber risk. Here are a few of the opening remarks from Arthur Coviello, Executive Chairman of RSA.
We can't guarantee risk-free travel on the highways or in the air, or apparently even on a cruise ship off the coast of Italy, any more than we can guarantee risk-free IT infrastructures operating our digital world. New breeds of cyber criminals, hacktivists, and rogue nation-states have become as adept at exploiting the vulnerabilities of our digital world as our customers have become at exploiting its value. With increased speed, agility, and cunning, attackers are taking advantage of gaps in security resulting from the openness in today's hyper-connected infrastructures. We can manage risk to acceptable levels. We won't stop every individual attack, but we can reduce the window of vulnerability from all attacks and put the balance of control back firmly in the hands of security practitioners. Although our industry has been talking about risk-based security for a while, the fact remains that few organizations do it meaningfully and well. We must learn to evaluate risk at more substantive and granular levels. Fundamentally, risk is a function of three components: how vulnerable you are to attack, how likely you are to be targeted, and the value of what's at stake.
RSA sponsored a study conducted by Carnegie Mellon CyLab said to be the first analysis of cyber governance among major corporations around the world. Some of the key findings: lack of attention at the top on cyber governance activities. Many companies do not have personnel dedicated to privacy and security roles, and most boards are not involved in their company's insurance coverage for cyber-related risks. They also aren't focused on reputational or financial losses flowing from data breaches or theft of confidential and proprietary information. The Risk and Insurance Management Society published ERM Best Practices in the Cyber World. The how-to guide helps organizations manage data risk through an enterprise risk management framework, including best data risk management practices, data risk assessments, solutions for weathering a cyber storm, as well as coverage opportunities under existing or newly available insurance policies. For more on these and other sources of information on cyber risk, visit the RINtv on-demand library. Now, more from constitutional scholar Professor Jason Mazzone from the Brooklyn Law School. In this edition of Legislative Brief, he looks at the court battles that have followed the signing of the U.S. Affordable Care Act.
The arguments that have been made in court against the health care legislation and the individual mandate component have all so far explicitly been based only on the question of Congress's enumerated powers. None of the challenges to the individual mandate have thus far invoked any individual right explicitly as a basis for invalidating the minimum essential coverage requirement. Most of the judges who have heard the constitutional argument about the individual mandate provision have held that it is constitutional. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, which is the intermediate court of appeals in the United States, it's a federal court, it's the level below the U.S. Supreme Court, has held that the individual mandate provision is unconstitutional. And so that issue is now before the U.S. Supreme Court, is going to hear argument in the case in March. If the court were to uphold it, the individual mandate requirement, it could easily write an opinion based on its prior precedents about the scope of congressional power. Those precedents have been quite generous with respect to what Congress gets to do. On the other hand, that outcome is not dictated by any of the prior cases. So it is, in many ways, a novel issue issue. And novel issues give the Supreme Court, as it did the lower circuit court here, the ability to do something different. Then we will have a decision by June of 2012 on whether this provision is constitutional or not, just in time for our 2012 elections.
For more of our interview with Professor Mazzone on the Affordable Care Act, visit the RINtv on-demand library. The European Insurance and Reinsurance Federation has changed its name from the CEA to Insurance Europe. Europe represents 37% of the global insurance markets, and with its 34 member associations, Insurance Europe now represents more than 5,000 companies that employ nearly 1 million people. For more information on Insurance Europe, go to our on-demand library. Now let's look at our most recent RINtv viewer poll. We asked you, how do you feel about economic conditions in the coming year? Most of you are pretty optimistic. More than half are somewhat positive, while 21% are very positive. 10% of you are somewhat negative, and another 10% are very negative. Thanks so much for responding. And remember, you can always comment on this and other RINtv polls in our on-demand library. In our new RINtv poll, we want your opinion of us. We put together a short survey on the news we cover, the site you watch us on, and the ways we alert you to new content. It's your chance to shape the future of world risk and insurance news. We hope you take the time to participate. Well, that's our program. I'm Anusha Marodi reporting from New York. Join us next time for more world risk and insurance news on RINtv.